graduated from India, where you just go to med school after high school. So you graduate early. And after that, I worked in Dubai in the Middle East. And then I worked in Ireland. And then I moved to Canada. And after that, I moved here. So that's the journey, how I took. I am a neonatologist. So I just obviously started as a pediatrician for initial years and then have been a neonatologist basically since 90, like almost 30 years now doing neonatology. Yeah. And specifically like in neonatology, quality improvement is my passion. And that's how I've been doing it. I got introduced to quality improvement while doing my fellowship and working in Canada. And I am fortunate that I joined, our group joined Mednax because we were a private practice, and then we sold our practice to Mednax 2009. And I have been really fortunate to work at Women's Hospital here, and where we can participate in quality improvement. A good teamwork going on here, and also in collaboration with Warman Oxford.
How did you get into medicine? Were you inspired by a woman to enter the field?
So that's like an Indian story, right? I have always looked at my mom. She is not a physician. There's no one who's a physician in my family, but she is an economist who graduated, I could say, much before her time in India when women were doing that. But for my parents, I'm the firstborn, before even I was born, they figured out their firstborn is going to be in medicine. And here I came. So they really encouraged me. And I always liked medicine from the very beginning. It's not only because it's a good profession. This is a profession where you can do more than, it's not a career. You can touch people's life, and the gratification is much more. It's just not a simple profession when you go and work and you get money and you raise your kids. It's much more, and it's always very close to my heart. The families we take care and their kids we take care, and how we get involved. So,
what do you think it means to be a woman in healthcare today?
The women I have met, or I look up to in neonatology or in general, they are really very well rounded. We have a really good grasp of multitasking, and our focus is not just on A to B. We just look at the whole global picture, and we can do that because we run homes, so we know how it works. There is finances, there is interpersonal relationships, there are how you raise your kids, how you balance with your husband or your parents, and that's what we bring to the medicine. We do a global care, not just doing medicine. We take care of the whole thing.
What are some of the challenges of being a woman in your specialty or just healthcare in general?
The challenges, I may say that I have been lucky. The challenges for me was moving places. So growing up in India and then working in Middle East was not that much of a difference. There was not much cultural barriers there, but of course women were looked differently in Middle East. But where I worked in neonatology, it was mainly a woman-driven, field. Because I worked in a hospital which had almost 20,000 deliveries. It was a big hospital. Out of us, I think maybe only 15% were male. We were all female from all over the world, mainly from UK. And so we didn't feel that. that I was marginalized in any way being woman. The voices were heard. And when I went to Canada to do my fellowship in Toronto, in our fellowship, it was male-dominated fellowship. We were not that many, but the program director was a woman. My mentor was a woman, and I really didn't feel that my being a woman was a disadvantage. If anything, if a woman in our group there as well worked hard, she was shining. We did not. The challenge was having kids and, balancing that. And I had small children at the time. And but I have a really, supportive husband who was really kind, and he moved to Toronto just for me. He really didn't have. He's in oil field, so Toronto didn't have oil field, but he suffered for 5 years for me.
What are some of the positives that come from being a woman in healthcare?
I think for women, we can make the best out of a worst situation. That's what I think. That's we are good listeners, and we can take lots of challenges. And even though we may not look as physically apt as a man, but we are very resilient. We can work long hours, we can make it work, we can have attitude towards work and the whole, the life in a general, which is more wholesome than compartmentalized. And we can solve issues in a better way without having egos, I think. I haven't found many women having egos, it's not that. We can work together well and make the best out of a worst situation.
What advice do you have for women who may be applying to medical school or entering the medical field for the first time?
Looking back to my family, my back, I think I am very amazed by the newer generation who is coming to medicine. Or I have 2 young daughters, so I know how they look. They're not in medicine, towards the life, and just to find a good balance of work and life. Your family and yourself. So give importance to each part of us, because some of us from the old generation, I would say, we were very focused on career and just providing and pleasing, and kind of lost looking at ourselves. It was not much later that we realized, but my 2 girls have taught me from very beginning to have the balance. It's important to have a life for yourself and, take care of yourself as well. And then do the best what you can. But don't take yourself out of that equation.
How do you think women physicians can best support fellow women physicians?
By collaboration, and also listening and talking to each other, and learning from each other's experiences. And I think I always feel that I wish the ones who are on advanced or in a position should cut a slack for them. And if they have, because in each period of your life, you have different needs, right? And you need to be supported at that period of life. So the younger ones, we can, we should mentor them, listen to them, and adapt to their needs. Every 10 years, things change. So like COVID has taught us so much now. So we should learn, and then we should empower them, and we should make them come at the forefront. Because looking back, I see it when I was growing up, or I was young physician, I was not even expecting that I will get any position. I was just thinking that I should just do the good job, and just please my consultants and that was it. But I think the younger ones should be in a position where they can lead from the very beginning, and they should be mentored in those. And they're really good ones. We have in our group outstanding young women physicians.
Anything else you'd like to add that we haven't touched on?
I think, there is so much of talk about the inequality in general. And what I found that when you are there too, like you think that you are oppressed or you're oppressor, right? One of those two. And when you're in the oppressed group, your outcome towards the same situation is different. But when you get empowered, you forget that. And that is one thing I just want us to remember, that never forget that what challenges or you had in your life, and now if you come over, you don't forget it. Maybe the others are going to the same challenges at this point in time, and just put yourself in their position and help them out.